This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Jan Jekielek. Right now I'm sitting down with former CBS News Senior Vice President and Trump 2020 Campaign Advisory Board member, Jeff Ballabon. Jeff, excellent to have you here with us.
Happy to be here.
So Jeff, you're on the Trump 2020 Campaign Advisory Board.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your journey to get there.
So in the 2016 campaign, I actually didn't get directly involved because I had a mission. My mission was I wanted to change the Republican Party platform's Israel plank, or the Israel language. And so it was very important to me that whoever would emerge victorious, I'd have a good working relationship. But as it became clearer and clearer that Donald Trump was going to be the candidate, there was discussion about me coming on board to do Jewish outreach directly. And there were a lot of candidates. A lot of people really wanted to do that. So it was not like I left them in the lurch at all. There were people at least as good as I was who did it. But I really wanted to stay with the work I was doing on changing the platform. We were ultimately successful and worked very closely with two of Trump's closest advisors, with David Friedman, who's now his ambassador to Israel, and with Jason Greenblatt, who is now his envoy for Middle East peace. And so we presented our ideas to them. And they were all for it because it reflected their view and also what they knew their boss's view was Donald Trump's view. Because the benefit of having David and Jason is that they're so close to Donald Trump for so many years, and it's like close personal relationships.
Right.
You knew when you were talking to them that they understood exactly where Donald Trump was. And so from early on, at that point, I understood, at least at some glimmer, although I'll say it keeps on surprising me, some glimmer of his understanding and orientation towards the Middle East. And ever since then, as soon as the election was over, I was asked if I would join the next campaign, 2020, to the advisory board, and I was pleased and proud and privileged to do it.
So were you involved at all in the move of the embassy to Jerusalem?
There are many, many people who could take credit for that, and I'm one of the few who just doesn't. Involved only in the sense that there was language in our platform language which did call for the embassy to be moved. But the truth is, that language exists all the time. Those promises are made all the time.
Right.
The reason the embassy was moved was because of one man, Donald J. Trump. That's it. So a lot of people are taking credit for it, but all the credit, I really absolutely believe this, all the credit goes to one man, Donald Trump, because everyone promised it. Republicans, Democrats, presidents, senators, one man delivered
For a long time.
For a long time.
Right.
He did it.
So, in terms of being a friend to Israel, how do you rate this administration relative to others?
It's off the metrics of anybody else. Mm-hmm. And I want to actually expand it outward because the president did something during this past State of the Union, which I'm not embarrassed to say it, and there were tears in my eyes. He did something extraordinary. There's a dramatic and terrible rise in anti-Semitism around the world, and the old hatred is just opening up more and more obviously. And it always starts with excuses. There's always a rationale and a reason, and now it's something about Israel. Israel is somehow always the most evil pariah nation of the world, even though it seems to be a genuinely decent liberal democracy that seeks peace. And the dynamic is such that every Jew, everyone in the world, for 2,000 years, was basically, for many people, we were a target. We were all guilty of killing Jesus. That's what a lot of people felt. Now, every Jew everywhere in the world, according to the left, is guilty of oppressing the Palestinians. And so Jews in Paris get killed for it. And the world says, yeah, sure, it makes sense. They're being killed because of what Israel's doing. How does that make sense? They're not Israelis. These are Parisian Jews. Why are Frenchmen getting killed? Because they're Jews. And so there is no disconnection between Israel and the Jews in the minds of our friends or enemies. What Donald Trump did at this State of the Union address was beautiful at a moment where, again, anti-Semitism is on the rise, even in Congress. He spoke about the greatness of America in a unifying message, and he wrapped, I felt, the flag of America around the people, around the people who were a Jewish survivor, a Jewish World War II veteran who landed in Normandy on D-Day and then went on to be a liberator of Dachau concentration camp, and a Jewish survivor of Dachau concentration camp who then went to the IDF and became an Israeli citizen, and then came to America and became an American. Right. And it culminated in Congress singing Happy Birthday, which was obviously not something he planned, but something which was, he set the stage for this for a Jew who survived the Pittsburgh massacre. And so that connectivity, it's all one. And I believe that the president, in his gut, at such a core level, understands that there is a moral imperative at this moment, and it has to do with how the Jews are being treated around the world and in this country. And so how he treats Israel is very much a relationship to that. And I know I'm speaking way too long. I have one more thing.
Okay.
If I can. I'm sorry.
Sure, no, please. This is what American Thought Leaders is all about. Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
About a year ago, I was at a conference in Jerusalem. It was hosted by the Israeli government and the Israeli Bar Association. They had about 200 lawyers and activists from around the world, 24 countries, who are fighting against the BDS, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanction movement, which is really a terror-backed movement to try and gut Israel, both in narrative and economically, and legally now. And I asked them, there are people here on the left who are complaining, oh, Donald Trump, he's loving Israel too much. People are going to reject Israel because of it. Blame him for the left's anti-Semitism. I asked them, oh yeah, it's perverse. I said, in your country, and America is very strong for Jews, in your country, how's the treatment of the Jews under Donald Trump? And they said, ever since Donald Trump came to power, became president, their Jews are so much safer, because under Obama it was clear that America didn't stand with Israel because America was rejecting the Jews. That's the way it was perceived, because it's always perceived that way.
Fascinating.
Donald Trump was strong for Israel. It was understood Donald Trump would protect Jews. And so the Jews, not that they were liked anymore, but they were safer in their countries.
Fascinating. Well, so the other question I have for you is actually just the whole kind of Middle East strategy that the administration has been pursuing. I'm wondering if you could kind of elaborate a little bit. We know what has been done. There's been tremendous work, I think, and arguably around ISIS and so forth that's been done. But now there's some concerns, this unilateral pullout, or maybe not quite unilateral actually. Where are things going with respect to the Middle East?
I think that, well, first of all, I will say this at the beginning and maybe repeat it at the end, but if not, bear it in mind. Donald Trump really deserves the benefit of 1,000 doubts when it comes to dealing with foreign policy in the Middle East. He's shown us that.
Okay.
Even the pullout of Syria, there was never a moment that I was concerned about Israel there. I had some concern about what it's going to mean for the Kurds and the Yazidis and the Christians.
Right.
But Israel being left to defend its northern border, with America having its back at the UN, is a good thing, not a bad thing. Israel's fine defending itself. Israel doesn't need or want America to defend its borders. Israel wants to defend itself. It just wants to make sure it won't be undermined by America, and it won't be. Right. As far as the peace process and the peace plan, look, the same people I was talking about, David Friedman, Jason Riedlett, also Jared Kushner, and the president, I have a tremendous amount of faith in where they want to go with this. I believe that if you watch their actions, they're going, especially Jason, if you look at his Twitter feed, all of a sudden you see Jason Riedlett, as the envoy, is reacting, and you would think unnecessarily, to tweets by the Palestinian spokespeople. And you gotta ask yourself why he's doing that. He's not doing it just to get his jollies. He's doing it, I think, tactically, because it's clear that the responsible Arab players in the region, the Saudis, the Egyptians, the Jordanians, UAE, they want to move forward. What's holding them back is this Palestinian Authority monster that they created, right? They took the PLO, an overt, absolute terrorist group, imported it from overseas into Israel, or from across borders into Israel, and it's been nothing but nightmares ever since. They have to solve that problem before they move ahead. I believe that the problem will be solved by responsible actors, not by Mahmoud Abbas. I believe that everyone who's working for him is being given a choice now, openly. The way Donald Trump brings these debates into the open, Jason Greenblatt is bringing it into the open, and saying, this is what you're doing? You're not part of this peace process. We'll deal with responsible people. And I think watch that very carefully, because that is the entire game here. The responsible people can make peace, and Israel is very willing to sacrifice their peace, but they got to get peace. And I believe that Donald Trump in the equation changes that, because everyone else talked about if the Palestinians do this, then they'll get peace, but they never said what if they don't. I think we're getting to a point of there'll be consequences if they don't. So we'll see.
And then more specifically around Syria.
Yes.
That's what I'm curious about. What do you think is going to happen next, according to the?
Well, I don't know in detail what's going to happen next, obviously. And remember, I'm a campaign advisor, not a policy advisor.
Of course.
But what I believe is going to happen is that there's discussions now going on, with Israel about how Israel plans to defend itself. Iran has to make rational decisions for itself about whether it really wants to have this front be an active war for its, because a lot has to do with where the U.S. and Russia are on this, and they would like to stabilize the region, I believe. And Israel. I mean, Bibi was just meeting also with Russia on the subject, and so I think that I'm comfortable with that border. I think that protecting the minorities in the region is critical. It's critical.
And who's going to do that in this scenario?
I don't know, but I believe and I hope that's what the ongoing discussions are right now, which is how to protect them. Whether it's a state or outside protection, they need protection, and I'm optimistic that that's what they have in mind right now.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience? I think that's pertinent.
Sure, I'll share with the audience that as a rule, I'm not keeping close enough track to give grades, but I'm very impressed with your coverage. I am. I think I think you do a great job of covering things. I think that's in sharp distinction to a lot of media out there that is not doing a great job. I think your coverage is thoughtful and balanced in a way that I haven't seen elsewhere.
We're working on it.
And I say this, by the way, as a former senior vice president of CBS News, so I also know a lot about media and journalism, I'd say. And so I think that the media in recent years has taken upon itself what they think of as the higher calling of being combatants. But instead of being combatants for truth, they're sort of combatants for a side they prefer. And I think that focusing on truth to the best people can is a sacred calling right now in journalism, and I think you guys are doing a great job.
I really appreciate those kind words,
Sure.
Jeff. Pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Jan.